Hello guys and welcome back. In the last section we talked about how exactly we can disable a submit button when the form is invalid. So we had a look at this required field validation that can be used. Apart from required, there are some other field validations that can be used, like say for example the min length. Let's say I have 3 in this case. Max length, that let's say I have okay, so min length let's specify it to 8 and the max length let's specify it to 20. And apart from that, I have a pattern as well. So pattern says John Doe, and this is the exact field value that I am requiring. Otherwise, it would be marked as invalid. So if I save this now and go back, the button is disabled right now. If I type in something, it won't be enabled. If I type in John Doe, then exactly it would be submitted. Okay, so these are all the four different types of field validations that can be used for an input. Let's quickly see what exactly does it have, does it affect, or how exactly does it affect the errors object that we saw earlier. So I'll just get rid of this disabled attribute right now. I'll just cut it and paste it at the bottom, and let's just comment this out as of now. Let's save this, and if I submit the form right now, then and I open the ng form and click on the errors, I'll still see that it's null, and that shouldn't have been the case because we have the required validations here. So maybe I should, since I had these validations on this particular name field, I should go to the controls and then I should open it, and in the name I should have a look at the errors. So right now if I open the errors object, then it says that the required field is true in this case, right? Let's say I type something in and let's submit this form again. Now the form was submitted, the errors object again is null on the form, but if I open up the controls object again and open up the name, then in the errors object I see a pattern error. It says that the actual value is this and the required pattern was this, something on the lines of this. Let's say if I type something which is of say less characters than 8 and submit, and let's open up the form controls and name again, then in that case we have two errors right now. One is the min length, where it gives me the actual length and the required length, while the other one is the pattern, wherein we have the actual value and the required pattern. So essentially what I'm trying to tell you guys is that we can simply leverage the form control object on the name to basically have field validations and display errors whenever there is a validation error. So to do that, let's just quickly undo this change right here, and at the top right below the name field I'm going to place a div, and in this div I'm going to use the ng if directive. And now if I needed to have access to the form control object, just as we did right here to have access to the ng form on the similar lines, I can create a template variable here named name and assign it the value of NgModel like so. Again, Just like here where we assigned the value of ngForm to a template variable named userForm, we can also supply, or we can also assign the value of NgModel of a particular form control to a template variable on that form control. Okay, so the name should now receive the form control object that we had on the NgModel. So now essentially what this will contain is going to be this whole form control object, and on this form control object we have the errors object, and we also have the invalid property true. Okay, so if this, say, name is invalid, then in that case I can simply use a paragraph to show an error to the user, and let's assign a class of alert and alert hyphen danger to this, and in the p tag that we have here, let's type something like name is required. Let's save this and go back. Now upfront I see a field validation error saying name is required, but that is something that can be quite confronting to the user, because we didn't really give the user a chance to interact with the form and directly showed them the error. So that shouldn't be the behavior our form should exhibit, just for the sake of a good user experience. What would have been a better user experience is that if I did something like uh, touched. So I should first check whether this particular field is touched, and only if it is touched, I'll check whether this is invalid or not. And if this is invalid, then I should, in that case, ask or show the user that error message. So if I navigate to this, hover or select this, and then blur away from it, then I should see the error message like so. Now we have multiple errors in here, so we can also show all of them, and to do that we can leverage the errors object that we saw earlier. Again, let's just type something. Okay, I won't be able to see that right now. I'll have to just get rid of this disabled property again. So let's cut this, save, and if I click submit again on the form, then I should see the in the controls object of the form control of name, I should see an errors object like so. And the key that we have here in the errors object would represent the actual validation error that we are, or the actual validation that we are applying on this element, while the value of this is going to be just true in this case. So on the similar lines, for each of them we will have one such field. So ng if, so if we have the name dot errors dot, say, required, in that case name is required would be printed, and we have four of these things like error, then we have min length, name must be at least, the min length was 8 characters long, name can be at max, the max length was 20, so 20 characters long, and name must only be John Doe, like so. So if I save this now, if I select this and blur away, then I should see these three error messages that says name is required, name can be at max 20 characters long, and okay, so this should have been max length, and this should have been pattern. like so. So if I select this and blur away, then I should initially see name is required. If I type just one character and blur away, then it should say that the name must be 8 characters long. If I type something like this and then blur away, then it is still showing me the field but nothing inside that. So looks like there is again an error in the errors object. Let's just submit this and see what exactly is the error right now. I'll open up the controls, and in name errors there is an error named pattern. Let me just go back. And I'll paste that. So name must only be John Doe. In that case, let's save this, and let's go back, type something in here. So it says name must only be John Doe. So essentially now if I type something that is greater than, oh, so it won't allow me to type something greater than 20 characters. So that won't really be an error that would be raised. But again, just to check, let's type in John Doe and then navigate away, and all the errors are gone in this case. So this is exactly how you guys can just leverage the NgModel, create a template variable, and have access to the form control inside this form itself. And with that, create form validations or so. Also, apart from this, we can essentially create some classes. Let's say if there was an error on this field, if I inspect this field, then it should have fields like, or it should have classes attached to it like ngDirty, ngTouched, and ngInvalid. Okay, so in that case, we can safely create a class, or we can just leverage these classes that we have. So let's say if the form control is touched and the form control is invalid, then in that case I should give this text box a border of 1 pixels solid red, like so. And let's save this and go back. So if I click on this, navigate away, then I don't really see that border. I guess I screwed up with the classes here. Okay, I guess we don't really need these ends here. Let's save this. And if I go back and I blur away, then I should see the field getting highlighted with a with a red border right here. Okay, so this is how you can use the classes that Angular applies to invalid fields to also add styling for invalid fields right here.